big question. It's an enigma. We have some interesting things going on in that distant village. We've got a lift that's, I don't want to say reminiscent, it is technology from the Pale King. It matches the lifts in the City of Tears to the fucking T. But it's been bound in silk. And so when we get up there and we can go through, we get another stag station. And that stag station's also a really cool clue because it's filled with the same silk that we find in the Weaver's Den and that we find down in the ancient basin right by the palace grounds in the hidden station. Showing that this is probably the stag station that Hera took. And I'm saying, yes, Hera took it to the Pale King because the stag actually, old stag, last stag, whatever you want to call him, he gives us a line of dialogue that says the Pale King actually never rode the stag stations. And quite frankly, I kind of believe that's a fucking lie. Because if you've seen Hera's chunk ass, she wasn't riding on no fucking stag. Maybe she was fucking running through, but not likely. So I kind of wonder if that hidden station was actually used by the Pale King to get to Hera instead. When we get into our speculation, that's important, that the Pale King was traveling there. And I want you to remember this, because we will come back to it. But with that Pale King technology in the distant village, we also have two what we'll call homes. The first home in the bottom is full of dead corpses. And when we dream nail them, we learn that they lied. They're not friends. No fucking clue who they're talking about yet. But then we hop our happy asses up to the upper one. And we'll know this as the Beast Den. But I don't believe it's actually called that quite yet. I could be wrong on that one. And we find some friends. Some friends that are really eager for us to sit. And of course, this is our trap bench. And this bench in the game is the worst fucking thing you ever sit on. And you actually wind up sitting on a dead bug at one point. But this one is such a feeling of betrayal because up until this point, it's like the fucking mimics from Dark Souls. You fucking open a chest? Nope, gonna fucking kill me. Yes, I know to look at the chain, guys. Yes, I know it's slightly breathing. Been there, done that, but the first time you fucking do it, you feel like an idiot and you have no idea what's going on. It's the same feeling you hit with this bench. Benches have been your fucking blessing up until this point. Sit on it, heal up. It's cool. This is our save points. This is where we go to rest. And then we can't get back up. Things close in, it goes dark, and boom, we're in a web in the Beast Den. And this is where we find Hera. And the Beast Den is really unique. And I'm going to include the distant villagers in this conversation here at the Beast Den. So something to worth note is that we have that Pale King technology. And we have those distant villagers or something in their skin. But they're wearing the same clothes as another character we've seen in the game. And if you read my write-up, I think it was actually my December write-up for the Look Deepers, you know where this is going. They are wearing the same tunics and the same garb as Eternal and Melita. These are the upper caste of the City of Tears. These guys are the elite that left Eternal and Melita. And they made the venture to Deepnest. They were likely killed because their faces are all dropped, so are their clothes. Something got them when they got there. They weren't friends. They lied. They killed them. They eat them. And then they wore their skin. And we've got stalking devout all over this fucking place. Which the stalking devout are literal worshippers to Hera. And this is where we're going to find Hera. We're going to find our dreamer here. And no matter what order you do it in, Hera stands out for one really big fact. Hera doesn't have a boss fight before her. Monomon has a fucking jellyfish. Watcher Knights have fucking Lurian up in his spire. But Hera has jack shit. She has literally just her home. And that seemed really interesting as well. Because we know Monomon and we know Lurien both took the job of a dreamer willingly. They accepted it. They wanted, and Lurien wanted to. Like, that dude fucking volunteered for the job. He was also all over the Pale King's D, but that's another story. They volunteered for it, and with volunteering for it, they put protection in place. Hera, on the other hand, has no protection. Sure, she's got stalking devouts, but they're kind of all over the place. I think there's maybe one or two little weavers in there. That's really it, though. Why? This question really led to the other discoveries as to why a spider would not set protection in place for herself as she dreamed. If she wanted this child, Hornet, and she made the agreement with the Pale King, she had plenty of time to know what was going to happen and to set up a boss, basically, some protection, someone to make sure her slumber wasn't disturbed. Yet we have a stalking devout. And the only reason I say we have a stalking devout is there's one stalking devout that protects her, that once you kill Hera, it never regenerates again. It just goes away. Like, that's the boss. That's it. Just a common enemy. Seems odd. Seems really odd. And in that, I want you to store that for a moment. Remember that she has no protection. Because that's a really important clue as to why and what happened here. And then, of course, the last place we have to look at is the failed tram. And the failed tram, while it is the last place we're going to look at, it holds some really interesting clues as well. And not just clues as to what happened to the tramway, the failed tramway, but what all went down in Deepnest. So the failed tramway, when we get there, if you're on the cloth quest, you're going to find her there. Spoiler. I don't know, she bitches about Nola like she always does. Fucking send her on her way. Big deal. But we can tree nail some of the dead workers. And those dead workers say that the nest rejects us. My king, it couldn't be done. This nest, it rejects us. They came here to build this tram. And you don't just normally go into enemy territory. You go there because you're invited, because there's a truce. And then the nest said no. Somehow, they were there long enough to actually get trams built, to get them hung. And then Deepnest overran them. And they killed them. And that is a huge clue, guys. There's a betrayal there. There's a betrayal of trust between Hera and the Pale King. Someone had to give their word for those workers to come there, for them to feel protected. Because when you work somewhere, and I really want to stress this, if you work somewhere, you should feel safe there. And if you don't feel safe, get the fuck out. Tell your boss, fuck off. Jobs aren't worth it, okay? But these guys went there thinking, hey, we're going to build this tram. We're going to do something great for Hallownest. And then the nest betrays them. And that lays some groundwork to some really interesting, we'll call it a theory at this point, an interesting theory that we're gonna stumble into here. But another really interesting part of the failed tramways is that it is the only place in the game that we find carver hatchers. Carver hatchers, first and foremost, let me say, are not native. They are an invasive species to Deepnest. We can really sum this up pretty well by kind of looking at a couple things. Number one is the Hunter's Journal. Even the Hunter himself says, like, hey, are these things the Carver's mothers? There's real little resemblance to the Carvers themselves. It's odd, but if they're not the mothers, how do the Carvers get in these things? And that's a really cool clue. Because no, the carvers are not coming out of these things in the way we think of giving birth. Yes, they're called carver hatchers, but those carvers are in there incubating, but not because they're supposed to be. The carver hatchers themselves are flukes, guys. And we can tie this in super well, both gameplay wise and lore wise. And we're going to go with the lore wise first. I'm going to explain why they're flukes, and then I'm going to cement it with the gameplay. So those carver hatchers have 6 segmented bodies. They have a mouth of teeth, and we've seen this before. We've seen this a couple times before in the Royal Waterways with the flukes, the fluke phase, and the fluke mod. When you cut the damn thing in half and it's fucking a dog and a goddamn flying piece of shit. These are more or less an evolved fluke. They have evolved for this environment. They're only found here because they hitched a ride with the workers from the City of Tears who are here to build that. They're here to build that tram. It's pretty simple to make it just through the design. It's simple to make it through comparing it to the flukes that we actually experience in the Royal Waterways. But like I said, I'm going to cement it and really drive it home for you with the gameplay aspect. If you dig into the files, the noise that the carver hatchers make is actually titled something like Flying Fluke. It doesn't really get too super more obvious than that. These guys are flukes. These guys are not native here. Now, whether they were brought here on purpose to possibly combat Deepnest or provide security could be argued. Or maybe they're here just because they were hitchhikers. That could also be argued. If they're here to protect, then we can draw a really cool similarity between them and Galen, another warrior we find in Deepnest. If you've read my look deeper on Galen, there's some really cool things about Galen. The mask in the background of the Mantis village matched Galen, so showing that the Mantis village was once upon a time killing Galen's species. Galen's scythes match the mantis claws that are in the background of Mantis village, showing that Galen's species, or Galen himself, was once upon a time killing and using the mantis claws as actual weapons. So, now we've got Galen in on this as well. And all Galen wants to do is to make his king proud and happy. But he's long since died in Deepnest. So, if this is a warrior of the king, and we know he is from his dialogue, Deepnest is turned on him once again. And we see even further how deep that betrayal goes. Deepnest didn't just reject the Pale King. Deepnest literally brought the Pale King and his citizens into their home, allowed them to start building, and then killed them. That's a huge fucking betrayal, guys. That is... Hey, baby. That is warfare. And I told you guys to keep these things in mind about Hera not being there willingly. That perhaps we had been lied to. That maybe there was more to this story than met the eye. And as I started to see that there was a long line of betrayal on Hera's behalf, I began to wonder, what if that history we're being told isn't right? What if Hornet, while she is part Hera, no denying that from her head shape and Hera's head shape, she's part that.